With the holidays, my 4-year-old at home, and a big work project with a looming deadline, I find that I've got a number of reviews that I would like to do, but really no time to do them. But this particular light I think is going to be time sensitive, so I'm going to crash this video forward with probably lower production values in order to share this with you. And that may go for my next couple of videos as well as I try to catch up. So, what is this shrinking violet, you ask? It's the Wellmaking LED panel. Why would you want it? It's an 80-watt bi-color light with excellent color rendition. Why is it a shrinking violet? Well, it's $70. I have a feeling that the price is introductory. It doesn't even appear on their website yet. I found it on Amazon while searching for something else. So, who is Wellmaking? Well, as you might have guessed, they're another spanking new Chinese company making a range of near knockoff video gear. It's the near part that's interesting. While they're not innovative in any particular way, they've steered clear of actual knockoff designs, which is refreshing in its own way. But is it really any good? The design of this instrument is very bare bones. There isn't an LCD screen, just a knob for output and another knob for color temperature. The body is made of an aluminum that's pretty light with plastic end pieces. The aluminum is thin, so it doesn't have that much of an advantage over plastic, but it is nice to know that it won't shatter or crack if knocked. That said, there's really no metal that can sufficiently protect the innards from shock, regardless of whether it's a $2,000 light or a $70 light. So the casing material isn't all that important, but it does put it into a classier range of fixtures. Overall, it doesn't feel overly sturdy, partly because it's so big, but it doesn't feel flimsy either, just somewhere in the middle. Don't throw it into your bag. It comes with a small light brick, which is nicely compact, and a stand adapter. The cord between the light and the brick is about 7 feet, which is a little short, but you can get yourself a Velcro strap to fix that. The cord between the brick and the plug is silly short, so you need to remember to bring an extension cord. Now let's talk about output. The Wellmaking is an 80-watt LED panel, and by the way, it doesn't have any fancier name than that. It does say LED M400 on the back. Now, the Wellmaking has 40 watts of daylight and 40 watts of tungsten. That's LED watts, which translates into roughly 200 watts each in a traditional bulb. Output is adjustable in what I'm guessing is 1% increments, but it functions kind of like an analog light dimmer. There are clear jumps in output as the voltage changes. Now, you can back it up to find a precise amount that you want, but it's kind of weird to have it flicker. The same is true when you adjust the color temperature, because you're essentially just adjusting 2 different voltages for 2 different sets of LEDs. The actual output is 2400 lumen at 1 meter, and it's consistent across color temperatures. Without a modifier, it's bright enough to use as a key light at about 5 feet, but at 6 inches by 16, it's a pretty hard light, and there aren't any light modifiers designed for this size. Now you can throw a scrim in front of it, but then you're kind of straining the light levels. With a modifier, you'll have to move it back about 18 inches behind the scrim, and then the scrim material itself will cut about a stop of light. At 2400 lumen, there really isn't much flexibility for modifying the light if you want to use it as a key. When compared to my other budget light, the original Godox L60, the light output is about the same with the reflector off of the Godox, which is encouraging until you put the reflector back on the Godox and the light nearly doubles. If you need a general wash, the lights do equally well, but if you're shooting into a scrim or an umbrella where the Godox can use its own reflector, the L60 has a leg up there, which of course isn't surprising because the Godox is a 60-watt light. Now, if we're comparing, it is important to remember that the Godox isn't bicolor. It currently sells for about $135, and it absolutely needs a modifier for use as a key light. So you can see the value of a light with roughly equal amount of output that's bicolor and at roughly half of the price. But where the Wellmaking really shines is color rendition. Now, I don't have a meter, so I check color by using a white card and then looking at the RGB levels in my editor. The numbers for red, green, and blue should be exactly the same or within a couple of points of each other. And that is exactly what this light does. Basically, it has zero tint. Wellmaking claims that it has a 97 plus CRI, and I'm inclined to believe them. The outstanding color rendition really isn't a surprise given the state of LEDs nowadays, but you still get manufacturers who put in crappy old ones, and since Wellmaking is a new brand, it's worth noting that they went with quality LEDs. The temperature is where the light stumbles just a little bit. There's no LCD panel, so it doesn't actually report the actual temperature. You'll have to either guess or meter it separately. It's a little bit of a nuisance. And the temperature range isn't the reported 3200 to 5600 K. In reality, it's closer to 41 to 5900 Kelvin. I say closer because I'm using a phone app rather than a professional meter. So I want to give it a little bit of slack there, but it clearly doesn't go all the way down to 3200. Now, this isn't a deal breaker for me because I really can't think of a situation when I'd want it to go that low. Balancing against practicals would be the obvious scenario, but in that situation, I usually want my practicals to be slightly warmer than my key. That's generally the way that my eye sees them. And if I was using this light to extend the practicals, then I think I would still want it to be slightly wider than the visible fixture. The LEDs on this are close together, close enough and with so many of them that you don't really get multiple shadows. The edge of the shadow is just a little rough hewn, which means then that you can use it without the diffuser here and therefore maximize your output. There are 150 LEDs for each color temperature. That's a whopping 300 LEDs in total, which is why you get so much light from this tiny unit. Now, without a modifier, the light goes everywhere, and that's perhaps the biggest drawback of this instrument. It literally has a 160-degree spread of light. Now, you can use black wrap to shape it, but that's a very futzy solution. And of course, there are flags, but those aren't very travel friendly. So that leaves just control by distance, having enough room behind your subject for the light to fall off naturally. The inability to conveniently modify the light is probably its most significant drawback. Now, I did find a DIY option that helps considerably with light control. I happen to have an extra fabric light grid that I bought for a failed project, and it so happens that the dimensions of the light itself align well with the squares of the grid. So I cut out a portion, used some Velcro to attach the grid, and now I can control the spill. You need to use the included diffuser to avoid a muddled pattern, but you only lose about half a stop of light. The grid costs $13, which increases the overall cost of the system by roughly 15%, but $85 is still a great deal. The universal spigot feels very well designed, as if it's attached to something solid on the other side, and that's a nice touch. But the enclosed adapter is a design fail. Like every other light stand adapter, it only bends to 90 degrees. A light fixture needs to be able to point down, not just forward, so you need to use a grip head to get the proper angle with this light. Now, that's not a deal breaker, but it's something to consider because now you need a separate attachment from your light kit, and of course, grip heads aren't small and they cost about $20 if you don't have one. It's a bother in part because they provided a bad solution for mounting. If they had included nothing, then probably no one would be complaining. Some folks will ask, does the light get hot? Well, no, it doesn't. Is it loud? There's no fan, so no, it's dead silent. And these are pluses. Should you buy one? The short answer is yes. It's a lot of quality light for the price, and it's bi-color. That's why I made this video without fully stress testing it before doing the video. I think the price is either going to climb or the availability is going to evaporate. The long answer, though, is maybe you should buy it. It's a great light for what it is, and the price is outstanding, but at 40 watts, the power falls into this in-between category. It's not quite bright enough for a key light, and the wide, uncontrollable angle of the light makes it hard to use to brighten a corner or highlight your hair. The stripped-down design brings down the cost, but you might miss the professional touches of an LCD screen and the smoother control on the knobs. And there's no case, so you might want to keep the box. First time I've ever said that. Now, when I saw this unit, I immediately hoped that there was going to be a non-bicolor option that would be 80 watts of daylight. I love bicolor lights, but 40 just isn't enough for a key light. A daylight fixture would have the same number of LEDs and therefore cost the same to manufacture. Unfortunately, they don't make one, not yet. Maybe they'll see this review and reconsider. Now, I actually bought a second unit to help overcome the 40-watt issue, but I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't already owned this bracket, which will allow me to attach two side by side on the same stand. With a DIY grid, it'll be a 160-watt bicolor panel that only costs $140 because I had all the other accessories. Now, I debated whether to make that second purchase for quite a while, but it seemed like a worthwhile investment. I own a Falcon Eyes RX24 TDX. It's a 150-watt, fully professional, flexible panel light with bicolor and exceptional color rendition. The Falcon Eyes is also 150 watts per color temperature, so 300 watts in total. This gives me double the output of my Wellmaking pair. And it's much better made with an LCD panel on the back for precise control, a case, it's easier to set up, and it has a history of dependability. It's my go-to light for interviews, but it also costs 4 times more. And it has a giant control brick and a separate power brick that aren't quite so joy-inducing. Even 2 Wellmaking lights will be smaller to pack than my single Falcon Eyes. The size and price make the wellness a very alluring idea. 2 lights can be combined or separated, gridded or wide open. The smaller form factor means that you can mount it in more unique ways and put it into smaller corners. And the lower wattage means that it can be powered by a portable battery or V-mount. So the long answer to whether you should buy one, and yeah, I took a long time to get to this long answer, is think about what you'll use it for first and how it will fit into your current kit. Will you have to buy a bunch of accessories to make it work for you? And is that money better spent elsewhere? And I'd also remembered that we don't have any idea about the reliability of this light, so it's not exactly risk-free. Then go spend some time with your family before you decide. Happy New Year.